Are we ready to go? Must be.
You may proceed.
Good evening and welcome to the Cedar Falls Planning and Zoning Commission meeting for this Wednesday, June 12th, 2019. Karen, can we have the roll call?
Yes, Atkins. Here. Hartley. Here. Girusso.
Here.
Bordeaux. Here. Holst.
Here.
Leeper.
Here.
Saul.
Here.
Larson.
Here.
Note that Wingert is absent at the moment.
Thank you. I'd entertain a motion to approve the minutes from the May 22nd, 2019 meeting.
So moved.
Second.
I'll second.
All in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
That motion carries. At this time, I would open up the mic to anybody who would like to address the commission under the public comments. That would be comments on anything that's not on our agenda tonight. If there's anybody who would like to address the commission. Seeing none, we will move on to our new business. There's no old business tonight. Under new business, we have Cherrywood Acres Minor Plat Subdivision Plat. And David, you are going to introduce that, correct?
Thank you, Mr. Holtz. I'm going to go over a proposal for minor plat in the Cherrywood Acres addition. That's located at the northwest corner of Union Road and 12th Street. And the particular lot in question is right along the south side of High Street, which is the westerly entrance into Cherrywood Acres. So it's at the southwest corner of High and Union Road. The property is located in R1 Residential Zoning District. Just moving along, just going over some plat details on this item. A minor plat really creates a new lot from the parent lot. So originally, the parent lot was lot 11 of the Cherrywood Acres plat. So you can see in the drawing here, it creates parcel F and G. Again, this is in the R1 zoning district. Those standards for the R1 district is 9,000 square foot for a single family home. Parcel F is just under 13,000 square foot, and then parcel G is just over 10,000 square foot. The setbacks for these R1 district, you're looking at it's a corner lot, so you got 30 foot for front and rear, and 10% of the lot width, which is 9.2, and that's along the west side. The existing dwelling is located on parcel F, and it does satisfy the R1 standards. And then the proposed dwelling, when it's constructed, if it's constructed, it'll have to meet those standards as well. Moving along with the other plat details, we take a look at where the utilities at, what are the policies from CFU, fire, engineering, and other staff members. And I just kind of want to go over these elements here as we look at existing water lines that runs along the west side of Cherrywood Drive. This would have to be extended to the new lot, which includes a main across the north side of that lot to a fire hydrant, just located to the east side of that existing driveway. And then at that point, from that water main, the service lines will go into the existing house and the new house. The existing house does not have water, so they'll get water on this proposal. So new water service. Moving on to existing electric. There is a overhead at the southwest corner of this lot, and that kind of runs in a diagonal to the existing house at 4114 High Street. So that line will have to be, of course, relocated for that existing house along the south side and then back up to the house. And then a new house would kind of come off of that line as well. Gas runs along Cherrywood and along the south side of High Street. That'll just kind of come in from that line off of High Street into the new house. Then we got sanitary sewer. Again, it runs down the middle of Cherrywood and High Street, and then that service will kind of tie into the new house. The other house has gas and sanitary already. And then finally, we want to maintain the existing drainage. The lot actually slopes from the southwest to the northeast, kind of into that corner there at the intersection. So those grades can't change. As if the house is coming in, they would have to maintain those grades and make sure it flows around the house. It can't interrupt or impact any surrounding property owners. So that will just continue to run up to the north east and then to the west along Union Road. In summary, basically, we look at the Cherrywood Acres plat. That was done in 1960, and this was before the area was annexed into the city. You know, it was a large rural lot development, 56 lots. You know, they're big lots in this area. You know, 120 feet wide to 130 feet wide. Depths range from 180 to 200, and you know they're 24,000 square feet. So you're looking at large lot development in this area. Proposal is to split this particular lot in half. Again, that lot does meet the R1 standards, which is just over 9,000 square feet. So you're kind of cutting that lot in half. And just additional comments, thoughts to consider is, you know, these people lived out there for a while. This is their neighborhood. It's a character, large lot development. Does this lead into potential future lot splits? Again, these are just not requirements, but just some items to consider on this matter, anything future that comes along to the Planning and Zoning Commission for any other splits. So with that in mind, we just want to introduce this item and gather comments from the commission and public, and then continue this discussion at the next meeting.
Great. Thank you, David. Yeah, so as David said, tonight's meeting is to gather public comment and for commission to review and discuss, and then it'll be on the, hopefully be on the next regular meeting's agenda for action. Is that correct? Okay, so at this time, is the applicant here, and would they like to address the commission with any comments you may have? Please come forward and give your name and address.
Tony Runyon, 4114 High Street. I will start out by saying that me and my daughter moved here to this house about 2 years ago, and we had plans of staying there indefinitely. 2 years have gone by, and I recently got married and have been told that we will eventually be having another child. And our current home is a log cabin, so we looked into adding on, but just all the ins and outs of doing that was just not an option. So that's why I'm here. I'm just want to build my family a new home, and I know there's a lot of pushback from the neighbors, as you can see. There's a lot of assumptions being tossed around that being a builder and a realtor, that I'm just doing this for profit. There are concerns about me renting the existing house, and that's not what I want to do at all, because I don't want to live next to a rental of next door. I've also had a few neighbors come to me in support, but they are fear of coming out publicly of the backlash that I have received. What I'm proposing exceeds R1 lot standards and meets the zoning ordinances required. And then I only have good intentions for the neighborhood. I grew up right down the street. I love the area, so that's that. And then as far as, there's some recommendations from the council, or the recommendations. The IFC code, which I gave you guys all a packet, states that I have to be 250 feet away from a hydrant. And on the first page, it shows that the existing hydrants are from the south is 199. Then I've been informed that it has to be to the frontage of the property. So, and the staff is recommending that running the new water main under Cherrywood and adding a new hydrant. I kind of feel like that's unnecessary and extremely costly for one property. So if you turn to page 2, I have talked to some staff and trying to come up with a solution or a compromise, and by adding the hydrant on Cherrywood and that radius around that, that shows that it easily is in with that 250 feet. And that's all I got. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Runyon. At this time, I'd like to open the floor to anybody to come speak, public comment on this, pro, con. Please come forward to the microphone and state your name and address.
Hi, my name is Susie Sigworth, and I live at 1028 Cherrywood Drive. So our property is adjacent to Tony's. Right now, his backyard comes kind of up to our backyard. We're on Cherrywood, he's on High. And the new house would also come up to our backyard, so we would have two properties butting up to our backyard. Our big thing is we would also lose our view. We've lived in Cherrywood for 22 years, love Cherrywood. I grew up on a farm, and when my husband and I looked at houses after we got married, the appeal, of course, was that the countryside feel. I don't know if you've been out there, but it's, in my opinion, the most beautiful place in Cedar Falls. And so I guess when Mark and I found that place, that was the thing that stuck out to us. My dad was killed in a car accident. My mom came and she lived in Cherrywood Drive, in Cherrywood. She moved here from 3 hours away. She loved it. So it is near and dear to my heart. It is nothing against Tony. I would be having this argument no matter who wanted to do this, because it's a place where it's unlike anything else in Cedar Falls. And the people that I feel have bought property there have bought it so that they can feel like they're out in the country. So I guess at this point, I would say, if you could pull up, there's a PowerPoint that Mark sent. I'm going to just kind of start with some of those notes. Is that, oh, there it is, very good. I'll let Mark do that, but thanks. So, as you know, recently within the last week and outside a 20-foot proximity to 4114 High Street, the residents of Cherrywood were notified and made aware of the minor plat submission that Mr. Runyon made. The thing that kind of was concerning to myself and other neighbors is that people outside of that 200 feet were not notified. And Tony had put something on Facebook trying to, let us know what was happening. And a lot of people weren't aware. And that was concerning to me and to a lot of others. And so I'm kind of worried that not everybody even knows at this point what's happening. And when you pull into Cherrywood, it's not just Mark and Susie's neighbors building a house. As we said earlier, Mr. Sturch alluded to the fact we're concerned that other lots could be divided and split apart. And that's going to take away such a unique, wonderful place that we've called home for so long. I, along with many of the residents, feel strongly that the minor plat does not align with our community. We feel so because home spacing is too close. It takes away from the character and feel of the community as a whole, as I mentioned. It changes the welcome feel of open spaces when entering the community, because High Street is one of 3 entries into Cherrywood, and once you get into Cherrywood, you're just kind of in that its own little community. So it's definitely going to have a different look when you drive in. It's also disruptive to the field of view for the nearest residents, which would be Mark and I. Right now we can sit on our deck and we can see the golf course. And when we moved in across the street, there was a farm and horses, which we knew. We had kind of heard that they were thinking about putting houses there and making it a neighborhood, which, we're not gonna change that. We still love Cherrywood, and we still had a wonderful view. But by having a 2-story house on that corner, we will not be able to see, we will definitely be closed in. It does not align with the Cedar Falls Beautification Initiative, and Mark will speak more about that. It is a double standard versus home improvements. So we've asked about adding on, we've asked about building a garage, and there are all kinds of stipulations. And again, Mark will talk about that. And those same things are not being addressed with this. We also believe it establishes a precedent that is acceptable to carve away green space for personal profit. So I'm gonna let Mark take it from here with the rest of the PowerPoint. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Susie.
Good evening, Mark Sigworth. She's the better half, just so you know. Just the arrow to right and left? Okay. I'm just gonna kind of go off of what she started. Let's talk a little bit about home spacing. I popped up a map here for you. Overall, the homes are evenly spaced with proportional yard signs. Putting a home in such a small space does not align with the theme of the community. Those entering on High Street will have the first impression of a congested neighborhood. And as my wife said, there's only 3 ways into that neighborhood, and that's one of the main ones for everyone. If you go to the next slide here, home spacing has a pleasant open feel. Neighbors are close enough it's inviting to walk over and say hello and talk, but far enough that we're not lacking in privacy. If you look at this, it might be kind of difficult. The homes that you're seeing there on the right side, that is the first home coming into Cherrywood on Cherrywood Drive, and that is the second home. And the space between those two homes, and that's from garage to garage, is about 34 feet. If you go to the next one, that's the second and third house, which would be Sirk's house into ours. From his house to our garage is about 30 feet. And going on across the way in the neighborhood, another example is from a shed to a house is about 30 feet. So we have a lot of open area there, which is the joy of living in this particular neighborhood. That's one of our huge concerns. However, when we get to the plat that's being addressed this evening, we're dealing with 19.7 feet distance between the two homes versus the old home and what he wants to build on the new plat. These two homes are congested. It doesn't go with everything else. Looks uninviting when you enter High Street. Again, that's the main thoroughfare coming in. The first impression of the community is tightly packed and there isn't much privacy. It just doesn't align with the rest of the neighborhood. As far as field of view, the house that the triangle comes off is mine. And we're looking at site origin on the northeast corner of our home. The home basically looks, when you're looking out of the field of vision to the north, to the east, and the south, we have approximately 126-degree field of vision. Considering the trees in the area, it's a little restricted, but overall 126-degree field of vision. When you start with a setback, changes things a little bit. Because bottom line is, I'm not going to go through all the numbers. The PowerPoint's been given to you. You can go through it at a later date and time. But we're going from a field of vision of 126 degrees to less than 92. It's about a 27% reduction, which I think is very significant, especially since I live there, I pay taxes, and I'm a resident for 22 years. Since when did neighbors become disregarded? That's the question. The beautification initiative, we've heard about it over and over and over. Setbacks on Union Road comes to this part right here. First residents when you come into Cherrywood, it is 115 feet from the back of that home to Union Road. So with me so far, 115 feet on the first house. You go to the second house, 118 feet. Third house in picture, which is mine, has 137 feet from the back of my house to Union Road. With the plat proposed, you now have 50 feet from that house to Union Road. Hopefully you're seeing the difference from hundreds of feet to 50. This particular picture right here is looking south from Union Road on 12th Street down Union Road. You can see that the Wild Horse addition, minus some fences and a small shed, all the houses align. It looks appealing, it looks right. If you look to the next slide, that's looking north to Autumn Ridge. Again, the same thing. All those residents that have been put through the years, including ours, they're aligned. It looks appealing. On this particular slide, you will see the current house on the lot at the intersection of Union and High Street, Mr. Runyon's house. It's the blue house on the far right part of the picture. And that's looking south, and it's kind of hard to see with the trees, but his house, our house, and the two houses to the south, and all the other houses in the neighborhood are aligned, just like you have north of us and south of us, and that you want for the beautification process across the city. We photoshopped in approximately where that house is going to sit and how close to the curb. That does not align, not even close. An established community, as an established community, the layout and the proportions, its curb appeal, scenery, and lot sizes that have been honored, creating a very desirable place to live. I feel that, my wife feels that, and you might hear that from other people. The layout of this community is fundamental to the property values and residents' quality of life. As the Prairie Parkway District was being established along Green Hill Road, I heard a fellow community member was in attendance of a city hall meeting, and the developer was scrutinized over and over about sizes of shapes, the street lamps, the types of buildings, the siding, colors, you name it, all to create a curb appeal and to prevent congestion and to create a theme of harmony within that district. This minor plat takes away from all those things. It reduces curb appeal by disrupting the home lines, which I just talked about. It takes away from the harmony of the neighborhood by creating two homes in visually tiny little yards and creating them in a very close proximity to one another. It is disruptive to the neighbor's standard of living by taking away from their field of vision. My question is, why is it acceptable to erode an established community by holding it to a lower standard of community harmony? Shouldn't the same standard of harmony and proportions and that curb appeal apply? Mr. Sturch mentioned earlier, and I'm not going to go into too much of it, but Oops, can you pull that back up for me, Mr. Sturts? I'm sorry. Looking at water runoff from the existing slope of my house, not only is it my house, but the neighbor to the south, there are 3 homes, including Mr. Runyon's, that all go to the north and to the northeast as far as water runnage. So I have a huge concern when you plop a house where there's a natural lay of the land, where's that water going to go? Is it going to be pooling water? What kind of stream formation? What kind of basement water are we dealing with? Again, you're changing the lay of the land, and these houses have been there since the 60s. It's nothing new. Through social media, Mr. Runyon has commented, the city and my engineer have looked into it, the minor plat drawing, and approved our proposal. While this is true, does it make it right? It's carving away every morsel of land for profit in the direction the people should be taking. It is now or becoming acceptable to disregard the neighborhood or the neighbors. Have we lost sight of what it is to be a good neighbor? My wife said it well, and I'm going to go on top of what she said. It is a neighborhood, and a fantastic neighborhood. It was established in the 60s, and we moved to that neighborhood, as did other people, because of the curb appeal, the size of the lots, the type of homes, but most importantly, the people that live in that neighborhood. And there's a number of those people here tonight. They weren't all notified, but a lot of them are here. I'm going to close on 2 different things. I went down to talk to Mr. Sturch on Friday, and I approached it in a couple different ways. One, the shed I have in my backyard I'm looking at replacing, so I asked him what kind of dimensions I would have to do by city code in order to take that shed down and put a new one up. I asked about garages and all these different things, and in actuality I said, well, can I add on to my home? And he pulled out the map, and do you have that map, Mr. Sturch? I asked you to present it. It's a map from 1960 when this neighborhood was developed, and the plat that was put together in 1960. And I asked him, I said, well, can I go out the front of my house? And if you look at the thing on the screen, if you go to the far, it'd be the far right side, 3rd house in, that's mine. I said, well, can I add onto my home? He said, well, no. It'd be very difficult because there's a 50-foot setback in the front, there's a 50-foot setback in the back, and everything has to be aligned with your neighbors. So I'm being told I can't add on to my home because it doesn't align with the neighbors. And here we have a plat that's going to change it all. So he said it's an established old neighborhood, and we have to go by that, and it just wouldn't look right. So if I can't add on to my home that's been there since 1960, and there's issues with that and the curb appeal and lining up, how does this fit? It's kind of a double standard. You're going to hold me to something from 1960, but you want to hold me to current laws. I'm confused. The bottom line is it's a great neighborhood and great people, and this is not a fit. It does not fit well, and it's nothing personally against Mr. Runyon. I don't care who's coming in there or who wants to do it, it doesn't fit. And I'm afraid you're going to set a precedence to take a beautiful, wonderful neighborhood and diminish it quite a bit. I thank you for your time, and I think there's a few other people that'd like to speak.
Thank you, Mark. Anyone else who would like to address the commission, please come forward and give your name and address.
Bruce Adkins, 4201 Newland Drive in Cherrywood. Our lot is just southwest a little bit across the street from Tony and Leah. I certainly understand why Tony and Leah want to build a house. The house they have is not conducive for a family to be built there. I understand that perfectly. He and I talked 2 or 3 times, and I thought it was strictly up to the city whether he did it or not. I never had read my deed restrictions until this afternoon because the structures were all there. So I never read the deed restrictions, but I thought, you know, let's read them. And when I read my deed restrictions, and the 3rd one down says, no building shall be erected on any said residential lot unless the design and location is in harmony with the existing structures and locations currently there. And then further down, these covenants run for 25 years. Cherrywood was platted in 1960. In 1970s, they were brought into the city. 1985, those expired, but the clause in there says they'll be renewed for 10-year periods, continually renewed, unless otherwise voted on by a majority of the property owners. That put a whole different look on it. I had never even looked at that. I had tried to talk to Tony today, and I finally caught him here. Sorry it was so late. But I don't want them to get in a situation where they think they've got permission, they dig a basement, start putting in a foundation, bang, here comes an injunction against them. You know, I think those are two pretty big things that they get straightened out before they even start. And this is something aside beyond that. The Union Road south of 12th Street on the 27th is built to be a 4-lane road someday. It's got the wide shoulders. Is that the plan going north on Union Road? If it is, this would be right in the way. Now that I don't know, but I've noticed that south, and I've lived there for 35, almost 36 years. So I looked to the north and thought, wow, if they do that same thing and make this a 4-lane road, it's going to be right up against them. So that's another thing that I don't know anything about that. I don't know. Thank you.
Thank you, Bruce. Yeah, anyone else who would like to address the commission, please come forward.
My name is Abby Wood, and my husband Chris and I live at 4213 Newland Drive, just next to Bruce and across from Susie and Mark. I just wanted to come up and share that along with them, even though my yard is not right against theirs, we share the same concerns, and the lot size and where these houses are positioned and what that neighborhood, that curb appeal and everything that is about that neighborhood was one of the main reasons that we chose that neighborhood in looking at all of the different homes in the Cedar Valley. I'm also very concerned about the precedent that this would set with others and splitting up their lots and building homes and what that would do to the neighborhood to further deteriorate what the current curb appeal is today. So I just wanted to make sure to share that as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Abby, anyone else who would like to comment on this? Please come forward and state your name and address.
Sam Runyon, 4010 West First Street. I did not intend to get up here. A couple of things got said that I don't think are accurate. That lot and the one right across the street that is owned by the Sweets, those two lots are unique to that entire subdivision. If you look at that plat, most of those houses are on lots that are deep. They're not wide. Those two lots are unique. Now, I don't know about the other, and they're corner lots. They're on Union Road. And I don't see where a new construction is going to not lend to the subdivision. That's about all I got. Thank you.
Thank you, Sam. Any others who would like to comment? Please come forward.
Just in response to what Mr. Runyon stated, if you do look at the plat map from 1960, his lot is not unique to any of them. In fact, I'm looking at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 off the top of my head. They're the exact same size as his. So please refer to that if you would, please.
Thank you.
I did not plan to get up here. Lisa Varlagashell, we live at 1017 Columbine Drive. My son and I used to deliver newspapers, and so just speaking from that, because we've been there since '98, the house on High Street, on the north side of the road, has always been a very wet place. And that's another concern, is that if they're building and taking up more ground for absorption, that poor house is gonna be flooded all the time. Because I know they've got sump pump and the ditch and everything's always wet. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Anyone else here tonight that would like to address the commission?
I'm Del Carpenter. I live right across the street from Tony, and Tony is a great neighbor, and I would really hate to see him leave Cherrywood, frankly. So it was some risk that I say, Tony, what are you thinking? and I guess if I were Tony, I would be thinking the same thing. I need a little more elbow room. This house is not going to be supportive of a family, and so he wants to do something to alleviate that situation. I don't blame him a bit. If there is some other way that the city can help him find a way to make the existing dwelling a family dwelling, that would be a good idea. So just need to be said. Thank you.
Thank you, Del. Anyone else who would like to make a comment? Please come forward.
I'm John Runchy, 920 Columbine Drive. Cherrywood is, some of you have probably never been out there. It's a unique neighborhood. It's wide open, and we're really proud of it. I would suggest, nothing against Mr. Runyon, perhaps he consider tearing the house down. That's not, if you can't add on to it and make it viable, perhaps tear the house down and put up a new house. But I really would hate to see our neighborhood start being subdivided, because we're going to lose the charm. Thank you.
Thanks, John. Anyone else who would like to address the commission? Please come forward. Yeah. Seeing none, I will close the public comment portion of our meeting tonight and bring it back to the commission for discussion and questions. Actually, I should probably, before I do that, I should ask the applicant if you wanted to respond to any of those items. Okay. Okay, thanks, Tony. Commission, any questions, discussion?
I have a quick question on the deed restrictions document. Well, could you tell us a little bit more from staff perspective, what type of impact that would have on this decision?
Well, the deed restrictions are a private covenant between the neighbors, so that's something that they would probably have to investigate and make a determination from their representation on whether this could be split or home added, if it's still viable. Again, Mr. Atkins mentioned that it does expire after a period of time, but was that renewed? So that's just something that they would have to investigate further and kind of work that on that side of it.
I guess the other thing that maybe is a little confusing then is what is the setback requirements of this new property versus as Mark mentioned, his property has a 50-foot setback. We're from the did I get that right? 50-foot setback from Union.
This one does too.
This one does too. Okay.
Yeah. Which is what concerns me about it, I guess, is that that leaves a 32-foot wide building envelope. I don't know what you could possibly build there. If you used 100% of the area minus a normal 2-car garage, that's not even 1,500 square feet, and that's using all of the building envelope to build a box, basically. I guess aside from the, as far as the Union Road setback, I think it fits with what you see going up and down Union Road, but anywhere you see setbacks to Union Road that closely, everything else abutting it is as well. So in my mind, I don't think this really fits with what's there, and I don't see anything changing in the properties around that vicinity and around that intersection that could eventually create an opportunity for more of the same kind of thing, so this didn't stick out so funny. If the split was right down the middle, as if the existing house weren't there, I guess I feel like in building 2 new structures, it'd be easy enough to make sense of it. But the big hang up for me is the building envelope width. I just don't see what would go in there that would make sense.
Yeah, do we know for sure? I don't know what that buildable area is.
32-foot, 32.8 feet from what I calculate. Is that can you
correct?
confirm that, David?
Do we know for sure?
If they use that entire envelope, it's approximately just under 2,000 square foot, and that's a footprint of the house. So,
Okay.
32 foot by 65 foot is what I see on the layout.
talking, maybe I can clarify the setback issue. Again, this older neighborhood, these lots were set up with 50-foot front yard setbacks, and that's along Cherrywood Drive. What we do in these established neighborhood is determine the front yard setback by an average calculation for houses on both sides of that structure. So it's 200 feet on each side of the structure, you come up with an average. So then when you find that average, you can go 10 feet into that. So if every house is at an average setback of 51 feet, you get 10 extra feet. So your front yard would be 41 feet. It just can't be less than what the district requires of 30 feet.
So by that, are you saying that the building envelope would be less effectively or not?
For this particular lot, you're still going to have a 30-foot front yard setback along High Street because the existing house scales at about 40 feet. So if you average that, 40 feet plus 10, you're at 30
I see.
feet.
Yeah.
And that's the R1 front yard setback standard. And then the Union Road has that 50-foot setback along all those properties. So any property along there can build up to that 50-foot setback, and that's for a house.
Yeah, that's one.
A detached garage is not included in that. Those can go closer to the lot line.
Right. No, that's true.
So those are pretty large envelopes when you're looking at front yard, rear yard, and then take away the side yards.
Right.
I guess I would look at it, and I'm not so concerned about precedent, because there's just not many lots probably where this can happen. There might be a few, but I am kind of concerned about just how it relates to the rest of the lots, particularly as that lot gets tight, and as Bruce said, and we've said before, that the Hudson Road expansion is going to be making it even tighter in terms of how that feels at that entrance, for sure. There are no shoulders on that road now. There are full shoulders on the Union Road south of 12th. Certainly it's going that way.
I have a question about the water and the hydrant and all of that. Again, explain to me why city staff is asking for another hydrant and water main?
That's a service policy from CFU. So basically, when you have, it's part of any development, you have to extend the water lines accordingly. And what this is the drawing that they gave you was it's a fire code with 250 feet from each hydrant. Well, that's not as the crow flies. It's actually as you drag a hose line along there. So this really is a fire and CFU policy that you'd have to extend the main to the building with the hydrant, and then from the main, you do your service lines to each house. You really can't extend a service line across someone else's property and then have another service line to the existing house. So really, in lieu of two service lines from across the street, you're just building one main with shorter service lines, if you can follow.
And then it also gets a new hydrant closer within that 250-foot range.
That's correct, with the hydrant right on, it'd be basically in between the driveways.
Because right now, the new house would exceed the 250 feet, so a new hydrant's required somewhere. Other comments, discussion, questions, Commission? Any additional information we would request before next meeting?
I think
Karen, do you have a?
could bring back, certainly could address some of the questions about the precedent and the potential for future lots. One of the issues is there's not that many lots that have access to a street that's not an arterial. So Union Road is an arterial street, so the city doesn't typically allow just lots of curb cuts along an arterial. So we could talk with our engineering staff and the rest of city staff to really look at what kind of potential there is for other lot splits that would be similar to this, because there has been a concern expressed, and we could at least address those kind of
I think
questions.
that'd be a good idea, get a little more in-depth research on that.
I would also be curious about the water runoff and how that would be reviewed and made certain that there wouldn't be any issues.
Okay. Any other discussion? or questions we can address to the staff?
I'd just like to go on record saying that I am a huge fan of separating old double lots and infill, and that I just don't quite see how this one works that way. Again, my hang-up, I just want to clarify, is with an attached garage, how a 32-foot or a 30-foot wide house would fit with any of the others, aside from the proximity to Union Road aside. Because any of the other houses in that neighborhood are at least that wide, but with garages detached. So if they were to have garages attached, you'd have a general aesthetic of a 50-foot wide house as an average, if I were to guess, just looking around. I just don't see that working in my mind.
Any other discussion? Well, seeing none, I think we will we'll move this on to the next commission meeting, which is 2 weeks from today, whatever that date is. You know, must be the 26th. Okay. I think that then completes all of our regular business for tonight. Are there any commission updates? Karen?
I don't have anything in particular. I just wanted to note that we did have some good participation at the downtown design charrette last week, and a lot of good input throughout the week at the Saturday meeting, and then we had some various meetings throughout the week, and a big presentation at the end of the week. And we'll be updating the webpage soon for those folks that didn't have an opportunity to come to the meetings. We're just taking some time to get all those presentations packaged up so that we can get them onto the webpage and the city's webpage so people can view those that didn't get a chance. But there's more to come on that project. We'll be back in a few months with more of a finalized plan, and it'll be coming through the Planning and Zoning Commission at that time.
Very good. Thank you, Karen. I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you very much.